Hello, Pauper fans. I'm Mathonical, and you're joining me for round 3 with Enchantment Control. Our opening hand, while a little slow and not a ton going on, does have everything we need. Basically, the Fertile Grounds will give us any color to protect ourselves from anything other than artifacts, with Protective Sphere and a Journey to Nowhere to get rid of something annoying, so we're just going to go ahead and keep this one. Starting off with a tapped land, just to start getting stuff online. Pestilence is a nice draw. That'll give us protection against any go-wide strategies. And it looks like, yep, our opponent is on white-black Pestilence. We're going to get our Fertile Ground down. This means we're basically going to have 4 mana for next turn, and we can drop the Pestilence if we want to, or any other options depending on how things go. I'm just going to get the Pestilence down now and drop a Desire. Just kind of seeing what our opponent plans on doing. Our opponent does have another Skyfisher to basically get rid of our Desire. It wasn't going to be a really good card in this matchup anyway, since they do have the Skyfishers. And with Protective Sphere down now, I'm going to be able to prevent most of the damage coming our way. Our opponent decides to use a Doomblade to get rid of the Pestilence, which, in hindsight, I don't think I should have played it that early, but our opponent does know how to play around it, which does make sense. Our Russian Clerics are going to be gaining a ton of life. They are currently ahead on the life race, which may make things tricky for us. We're going to go ahead and just drop a ton of enchantments. I don't want to be getting in, them to get in lots of little damage, because at some point they're going to pestilence us back. So we want to try and get our life total higher than theirs. We don't have a lot going on, but neither does our opponent currently. I'm pretty sure they're holding their other Skyfisher in hand, just as a way of kind of getting around any more of our auras. And that does make sense. Going to continue to gain our life. We're currently ahead in the life race, but we're down a little bit on time and cards in library. So we're going to have to keep that in mind and try our best to play around that. Getting another Quiet Disrepair does help us get our life advantage. And it does look like our opponent is on my preferred Kamulok version, which I do feel it's the stronger deck, but not everyone agrees with me, which is completely understandable. So yeah, we're just going to continue gaining life. We don't really have a lot going on. We're just going to kind of get in for a damage since we're ahead on the life race currently. And our opponent does play a Pestilence. It's not going to do a ton, in my opinion, since we're ahead on life. But I don't mind them having it. They now have the Grim Harvest. This is what we're going to have to try and grind our way through this time. Thankfully, we're not using our graveyard for anything, so I don't mind these Bajuka Bogs being reset. And yeah, the triple Skyfisher, alright. This is a good incentive to play our own Pestilence and wipe them out, but we do have to be careful. We do need our Pestilence to basically stick around. We only have got one more Pestilence in the deck, and with those 2 Pestilence we need to try and do 23 damage. I'd also rather not take the full damage, so here I'm just going to use the Protective Sphere to kind of reduce the amount of damage we're taking down to 3 instead of 6. Oh, that I feel like was a big mistake on our opponent's side. This is now our win condition. We don't need to do damage anymore to win this. So basically now we're just going to let our opponent do whatever they want going forward, and we're just going to let them draw themselves out. Basically, it means that we may not get a chance to cast that Kruphix's Insight, but if they ever get far enough down on cards and we need to, we can always cast it in a pinch. We are going to lose our Pestilence here, but I'm not too concerned. I'm actually just going to use it for a little bit of damage since we still have guaranteed gaining life going forward. And I'd like to keep the option of just kind of winning through damage on the last Pestilence at some point if needed. Yeah, things are looking pretty good for us now. The way I usually use Pestilence to save time is I'll tap all my black sources that I plan on using all at once, and then I just spam click on Pestilence just to really quickly get all the damage out there, because we do need to play around time. We are down a minute and a half at this point. And our opponent is, of course, gaining a bunch of life, because that is what white-black Pestilence does. We're going to gain our life, and here we're just going to kind of get rid of some of their creatures permanently with some Oblivion Ring and Journey to Nowhere type effects. I'm actually trying to incentivize my opponent to play out some more of the Skyfishers. Basically, these are the cards I want to get rid of with the Journeys. since they turn off all of my enchantment removal. So our opponent does follow into our trap, if I can call it that. And it looks like they also realize how important the core Skyfishers are in this match. So they're going to go ahead and remove their own creatures. That does make sense, since our only creature in the deck is... which one is it? I forgot the name of it. Oh yeah, the Heliod's Pilgrim. So, since it looks like they're trying to play with their Skyfishers, and since they're tapped out, I'm just going to go ahead and cast an Oblivion Ring here. Alright, sorry for the small interruption. Basically, I did end up using the Oblivion Ring on the Lone Missionary. For some reason, the Magic Online replay had glitched there. But we'll be able to continue from here, hopefully. So, our opponent is using the Grim Harvest to pull back many of their creatures, the core Skyfishers, but that is fine by us. Basically, we're going to be able to kind of gain 4 life a turn and only take 2 damage a turn because of the Protective Sphere. Drawing the last Pestilence does give us another option at some point, but I don't feel like we need to do that just yet. And I'm just going to play out the Faith's Fetters just as a way of gaining some additional life and preventing some damage this turn. Like, basically, at this point, I don't really see any way that we're going to lose, as long as we continue to gain life, and as long as our opponent doesn't have any main deck, like core Sanctifiers or anything like that, to start looping. So we're just going to go ahead and only take 2 damage this turn. Opponent continues to gain some life. Basically, I would like to get a couple more Quiet Disrepairs, and sure enough, one does show up. This basically will lock out the game, being able to gain 6 life a turn. We're also going to be able to remove some of the creatures from the board using the Pestilence if we want to, but I'm fairly happy just taking 4 damage here since we're going to be gaining 6 life. And I can start pinging for 2 if I want to, but I'm just going to leave it for 1 more turn just to kind of see how it goes. We might be able to ride this Pestilence to victory until our opponent plays their own Pestilence, of course. Doesn't look like there's any more Skyfishers, because we've got 1 already here, there's 2 there, so they basically have 1 left in the deck. It does seem that way. Our opponent is going to continue to use their Grim Harvest to get back a lot of creatures, and they do end up playing their own Pestilence to wipe out the entire board, just to turn our Pestilence off as well. It's kind of what I was expecting, since they have more Pestilences in their deck than we do. And the last Quiet Disrepair, perfect. We basically have this game locked up now. We're going to be able to gain 8 life a turn, and I don't think our opponent has any way of doing more than 8 damage in a turn. And they're just going to draw themselves out using the Monarch. I do find it interesting that our opponent is playing the Thorn of the Black Rose over the Palace Sentinel. If anyone has any ideas as to why this might be played over the other one, let me know. I guess it is Death Touch and would block block anything profitably. Alright, we're going to continue to gain our life. We're basically just skipping turns at this point. We don't even care about taking 2 damage. We're going to try and gain some time on the clock by just basically ending turn, and gaining 8 life, since I don't see any reasonable way our opponent can get around this. Now we're going to be taking 8 damage a turn and gaining 8 life. Now we can be taking 10, I'm still not concerned. I may play the Journey to Nowhere, just to get rid of this core Skyfisher, just to make sure we're at an 8 and 8 parity. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and continue to just pass as fast as possible. Looks like we only have 2 more turns to go. Yep, we're going to take our hit. No big deal, we're still gaining life. And since I'm clicking so fast, I did end up accidentally destroying one of our enchantments, but, you know, trying to click as fast as possible is how it goes. We're still down 30 seconds, but that's a lot better than the 2 minutes we were at some points in the game. And this will be the last turn of the game, so we did manage to get there. Long, grindy one, but we did manage. Alright, so we're going to jump into game 2. We've got some pretty good sideboarding for this matchup. Basically, we're going to definitely bring in both of the curses. That's going to be our main win condition this time. We're also going to take out the Kruphix's Insight, basically because we are concerned about getting decked. I'm also going to take out a lot of the aura removal. I just don't want to get hit Like the core Skyfishers make these so bad. And then in their place, I'm going to bring in the Aura Gnarlids, basically as a way of closing out the game a little faster since we are a little bit down on time. And what else did I do? Oh yeah, the 2 Relic of Progenituses, because they do have the Grim Harvest combo. That's basically a way of fighting it and shutting down it for the most part. So, there we go. Should be a pretty good sideboard plan. Looking at our opening hand, this is not a keepable one, even though we are fairly happy having the Relic. Since we only have 1 land and no mana fixing, this would be a very risky keep, so we're just going to send that one back. This one, it needs a green source. There are 15 green sources in the deck, and if we do get one, Abundant Growth basically turns our entire hand online. We will need 2 lands at some point to be able to cast the rest of our spells, but this has all the pieces we need to win, and our opponent isn't playing the fastest deck. So I'm going to keep this. Basically, the Scry plus another card hopefully will get us to one of those forests. Basically, I feel like keeping this and hoping for a green source, which is probably within 2 draw steps about 40%, maybe 45%. I feel like that's better odds than going down to 5. Especially given the power of our hands. We're going to keep this one. And we get rewarded. Forest on top. Very happy with this one now. We can manage. We're just going to go ahead and use the Abundant Growth there just to try and draw an additional card. And we drew another land. So all cylinders are firing. And since we're not under a ton of pressure, I'm just going to go ahead and get the Curse of the Bloody Tome down now. Just to start the mill plan. I basically didn't really have anything else I felt like I needed to do there. We're taking a few damage here, and just to kind of lessen some of the damage, I'm going to play a Heliod's Pilgrim. That will be able to block anything just fine. So here, instead of taking 3, we're going to take 1, and then with a Quiet Disrepair, we can drop this on one of our enchantments just to start gaining life back. Guardian, we don't have any way of dealing with that other than the multicolored aura, which we don't have in hand, but with the Quiet Disrepair, it's basically going to be negating the damage that the Guardian is doing at this point. We're going to go ahead and block the Kami. It does open us up to a Pestilence, which does end up coming down. But I'm not too concerned about that, since we do have a Pestilence of our own to drop at some point. And we can, since I am a little afraid of just getting pinged out with the Pestilence, I'm just going to get rid of it. Along with the Areshan Cleric, just to kind of really prevent the beats. Our opponent is dropping as many creatures as possible, which does make sense. They're trying to get the last 10 damage, so things are a little hairy here. But we are going to be able to drop our Pestilence down. We're going to take a big hit, and it's going to be really close. Basically, if our opponent has another Pestilence, I don't think we're going to be able to win this. But since we have 4 black sources, I felt this was the best plan, since we're going to be able to wipe away the board and survive the hit from the Guardian. So we're just going to kind of hope that our opponent doesn't have another Pestilence in hand. We've only seen 1 so far, so there's 3 more in their deck somewhere. Well, actually, we also have 1 under here, so there's 2 more. It's going to be close. If they have Pestilence here, we do lose. So this is where we just have to cross our fingers and hope. And they're digging. All right. Okay, we can survive this. It's still going to be really close. We're going to gain our life. And here, basically the only way I see to survive is to use like Oblivion Ring and take 3 damage. The other option would have been to use Protective Sphere and basically take 3 damage that way, but this is completely taking off the core Skyfisher, which is something I want to do. We did manage to mill a Pestilence, so that's 1 more Pestilence down. It's going to be a really close one. I'm going to get the Protective Sphere down now, so this way we're just taking 2 damage. We're still dead to them drawing their last Pestilence, but there isn't really much we can do about that. And if we kill any of their creatures, they are going to be able to start getting them back with Grim Harvest, so we're just going to keep going with this. We're going to be able to continue to block the damage or kill everything. Since we can't kill everything here, since we'd have to do 4 damage, and then we take 4, we die, so we're just going to go ahead and use Protective Sphere, take 4 damage, and then we're going to gain 4 damage on our turn. It's a close one. On their turn, next turn, we're going to be able to deal 4 damage to everything to wipe the board, and then use Protective Sphere twice to prevent those 2. Basically, it's going to put us down to 2 again, and the Relic is really nice. We can trip that when they go to activate their Grim Harvest, and it looks like we milled the last Pestilence, and I think that was their last out to try and win the game, since we are going to be able to lock up the board fairly nicely from this point forward. If they have any core sanctifiers, that could also interrupt our plans. But I think we've got, like, we're looking pretty good here. Managed to get rid of all of the creatures and the Grim Harvest, so that looks pretty good for us. We're going to prevent the damage on both of these creatures. So that's going to put us down to 2. It's a really close one. But outside of a core sanctifier, I think we do have this one. We only have a few more turns to go with the Curse of the Bloody Tome ticking away. It looks like our opponent is going to make us discard the rest of our hand, but it was just redundant copies of what we had on the battlefield. Looks like our opponent had gone on the Shinobi plan. And here we're going to start gaining 2 life a turn, like net gain. That's going to be quite nice. Opponent growth is a redraw. Bloody Tome, alright, that's going to speed up our clock by quite a bit. That's going to be very nice to have. And our opponent does concede there. I guess they realized that all 4 of their Pestilences were gone at this point, and there wasn't a way they're going to be able to get past the last few points of damage. So it was a really close one, and we did get a little lucky to just scrape out that win. Whew. Well, I'm just glad to see this deck working and in action. Thank you for joining me for this one. We're now 3-0, and I'll see you in round 4.